I wanted to talk about the process of idealization and devaluation, which is something from psychology and psychiatry and, just life. It can happen in so many relationships, but a relationship that I would like to focus on is when someone has psychic abilities or skills and then they become idealized, and then the person who's idealizing them then splits and flips and starts to hate them. And the response is it's a symptom of many psychiatric disorders, but it's also just a human response when we put someone on a pedestal and then we realize they're not perfect, or we've decided, we've projected some overlay onto them and then they don't play that out as we want. And that's actually a wonderful learning lesson for the person who's having the splitting, to realize that people have multiple personalities, literally. I know that's a disorder, but in parts work, which I have done, which is a therapy process, you kind of start to see that we are many selves. We are not one person, and within ourselves, and there's many parts fighting, and so I think in channeling, especially as a medium, as a psychic, I'm actually showing you a lot of those selves, because as a channel, I'm trying to be empty, so I might let through energy, that's mine, but I don't express it that often. But most of the time, to be honest, if I'm channeling, which it's not every video, it usually will say channeling, I'm pushed back, and I come in with a plan, an idea, and I'm like, here's what this is about. I got a script here. I may have written notes. I may have a sort of eidetic memory, so I may have a very annoyingly succinct plan. And then as soon as I get into this sort of trance state, which happens when I relax a little bit and stop thinking about the words that are coming out, it's almost like there's this energy that's pushing me back. They're like, you stay right here, we'll just use you. And I'm like, okay. And it's a little uncomfortable, but what I'm saying is something else is coming through, and it's facilitated through my personalities, myself, my voice, but it's actually not me. And I know that sounds like a huge claim, but that's honestly what a lot of channelers are doing. There we go, my voice changed. Whenever my voice changes or I stutter, I consider that channeling. Okay, so here is where it gets really tricky with channelers. We're channeling a lot of energy. We're channeling and psychic mediums. I make sure to seal the reading before, because I'm always praying to Mother Mary in the morning, so I consider that my seal of whatever energy through the day. I can handle it, I can deal with it. So all these readings have been sealed spiritually and energetically by the love of Mother Mary, which is a figure in the Catholic faith, if you don't know. And that gives me faith that any entity or energies that are, or souls that are coming through, or guides, is working through a higher good, because Mary wouldn't allow anything else to happen, anything that. But so I'm saying that sometimes a person who idealizes, and which, say you have borderline, or you have even bipolar, can do this, or just as I said, any person can do this to a degree. We do it with politicians, we do it with celebrities, we do it with, it's most common with people we don't know that we put on a pedestal. But so psychic medium, it's like a rare thing, right? There's a couple things that can happen. You can slip up, you could channel something that the person, it's not true for them, it's not their reading, and then they're like, well, why isn't this coming true for me? But anyone who is into readings needs to know, if you haven't watched readings, you wouldn't know this, but if you watch a lot of readings, most people, I don't do a lot of disclaimers. if it's not vibing, it's not for you. It's for a specific, each reading is for the collective, but it's for a specific person. So if you're not feeling it, just click away. I do that with readings all the time. I'm like, oh wait, this isn't my energy. Then it leads me to something that feels more, and you'll know because you'll feel a click-in feeling in your body. You're like, oh, this is exactly what I'm going through. So that's one thing that can happen and make someone flip from love bombing to hating you, which has happened to me like 4 times on this channel, with like first positive trolls, then negative trolls, which I usually don't respond to, but I was intrigued by one the other day because, well, I won't talk about why, but yeah, usually I made an announcement like a year ago or something that like I don't respond to trolls. And if I do, it would be like, I'm sorry that you're like going through this. I don't get into debates. I don't do internet like wars. I don't like that. It's honestly too draining. I don't have the energy. It's exhausting. I will like speak up for myself in public forums, absolutely, but I'm not gonna do a back and forth with anyone. If I have something to say, it's not a conversation. So sorry. Aries rising. Another thing that can happen is that you can channel something that the person's not ready for, and it can scare them, and it can be intimidating to be challenged in that way in their life, and then they can start to hate you. Another thing that can happen is you could channel something like that just offends them, like a personality or an energy that's like harsh, or like sometimes I might channel some energy that's like, look, you really need to get it together, you have to do this and you have to do that. That's like really not my energy. I'm actually like, if I were to listen to that kind of reading, I'd probably be like, whoa, okay. But sometimes the energy match just it's upsetting for you. And here's the other, like, that realizing that psychic mediums are people too, they're flawed, they're not perfect, they may slip up or like swear, or you may like find out things about them that you don't like, and you're like, hey, this is incongruent with like a psychic medium, like I can't believe that you're like this. Or when this is one of the worst, hardest things, is when you're spot on with something and people realize that you're gifted, and it scares the bejesus out of them, and they either cut you off or are very wary of you, or honestly like act as if you're like a witch in the negative way. Like I call myself a practitioner of Wicca, which is the 70s revival of paganism, but I don't do any devil worship. I'm not like a negative, I don't believe in anything like that. I believe in communing with nature, which really comes for me more from I'm half Irish with a little Scotch in there, and the other half is a different thing, but anyway, that is really related to gods and goddesses of nature, so it's very personal to me. So I'm saying there's a negative side to that, to being intuitive. Most of the witch burnings that happened in the 1640s, I believe, was the era that it was most prevalent, although it started around 1610, I think. In Connecticut, someone was killed for being a witch. Her name was Alice Young in Hartford. And it's, it's for the same stuff. She probably was, I think actually she was a medical, like herbal healer. I'm doing this because it's like pounding herbs into a thing. And that is scary for people. Another story I think I may have told before is Hutchinson, who, it's kind of an awful story, but just quickly, she ran a church like in the Boston area, like, and she's a woman, so it was like really dicey, and it was called meetings, but she basically would just organize these hugely attended by famous people too, like church meetings that were like really radical. Like they were about, I would say they were New Age but Christian, and people couldn't handle it. And I think she did like herbal stuff too, like that kind of thing. And she was literally ran out of the settlement. She was like banished, and then it ends awful in an awful way because she moves to the Bronx, which isn't really developed, and it's kind of a very tense area at this time when she came there, which was, I feel like, oh boy, was it, you know what, I don't want to butcher the dates, but I feel like it was in the, it was, you know what, I'm just going to write the dates below because I don't want to butcher it. But I know that the Dutch came around the 1400s and started doing settlements. Sorry, this is turning into a history lesson, but Anne Hutchinson, her, she, I think it may have been more like 1600s at that point, but I could be wrong. But it was like this very actually tumultuous time where there was warfare between tribal groups and the Dutch in that area, and she was warned to leave, and she said, no, my faith will protect me. And she and her family were savagely murdered by native peoples who were, I mean, rightfully angry at what was happening. They were being murdered themselves in masses by the Dutch. But they, you know, the settlement that she lived in, they had all left. She'd been warned. But, you know, her daughter was like taken and lived as a captive for like years with them, which is tragic and wild, but she was saved for her red hair, incidentally. Hutchinson Parkway in New York is named after her in New York City. So listen, it's basically the tale of women being like subjugated for being powerful or intuitive is one story here. It's also common with women to be like idealized and just devaluated, often because people start with their looks as an entry point, and then they realize they're maybe a lot more attached to that, and then they're like, oh, you're not who I thought you are, you're a liar. Okay, but so I'm sorry, I'm getting off topic. So I'm saying I feel like sometimes I've had experiences where I've felt like if I were in the 1600s, I would be burned at the stake because I've like terrified people with my intuition. Not even in the context of them knowing me at all, like meeting people for the first time and somehow picking up on multiple things about them, telling them things about themselves, and them being like terrified and not wanting to talk to me anymore. That is one thing. And then also just strangers on the internet, if you get something super right, it might hit a nerve that they're not ready to hit, and they might not want to see that there's a possibility that people could, sorry, that's my stomach grumbling. They might not want to see that there's a possibility that people could like tune into things beyond the human eye, the naked eye. And that might be like scary for someone who's a skeptic or someone who's like very like head focused, you know, like the live in these chakras up here. That might be really scary, although those chakras can be powerful for channeling if you're a skilled channeler. But so I've had multiple people, like more, I would say at least 5 at this point, and it's been very interesting since I've put a lot more energy into the channel. And I love drama, so I'm here for it. Like for periods of time, and I also love to just like set up like scientific modules with people, like unbeknownst to them, for like periods of time and just like watch their behavior, which is like just the scientist in me. So there will be a person who will love my readings and will just be like, oh my god, this is so great, and like just comment all the time, and I'll be like, oh god, thank you. And I usually like to say love you if someone's giving positive feedback, which probably is not the best, but I can't help it. It's my literal response. And like, you know, it's just my style. So So then eventually this person will, and this has happened with at least 5 people at this point, will turn, I don't know what the turning point will be, but they will turn to the dark side and they will start to hate me. And also, of course, I get like negative comments just from random people that like never write anything positive. They're just like, you suck. And you're like, okay, internet, thank you. They're like, I don't like your like dance. And you're like, I'm sorry. Or you just get wonderful positive comments from like random people who were like, this is great. And you're like, I love you, Sally O2 from wherever you are, you know? Anyway, but I like patterns, so I notice the ones that comment a lot, and I love predicting what will happen and being right, because I'm a psychic. I'm like, oh, here we got one. So I watch, and what happens is they love me. And then they're like saying, you're so great, this is so like, whatever, you're talented, you're so smart. And then something will happen, and one time it was because I think it was because I pulled the grandfather card and I was channeling my grandfather, and that scared the person who had been watching closely, and it was a they, and they, you know, it wasn't a she or a he, it was a they person. They just flipped out. I don't know, something about pulling the grandfather card and having said, I'm talking to my dead grandfather right now, before I pulled it, freaked her out, and she just started like writing. I don't want to say what the things are because I don't want anyone else to be offended, but I was like actually just laughing because I predicted it would happen, but I didn't do anything to make that happen. I was just like, this person's gonna turn, they're getting ready to turn, because, you know, we all come to psychics with a lot of feelings and expectations, and sometimes when those expectations are met, that's even scarier. Another thing is, like, on the internet, like, there's often like people watching you that like you know from some period of life, or they may have like feelings, or like they're a friend of a friend or whatever, they may have like feelings about you that they never expressed, and they're like using fake identity, positive or negative, to express those. And that's like, I don't really care about that, but I'm just like more interested in the case studies of the people who like go long periods of loving me and then decide to hate me. And I just think it's so fascinating because it is a documented disorder. It's called, you know, it's called idealization and devaluation. So yeah, I've also had this happen just like in real time, just with people, as I've said, like, where they're like, why would you know that? Like, why are you saying that? And they actually might get like aggressive or scared. It's scary. And then of course you're devalued. But it happens with mentors and therapists and politicians and family and boyfriends and girlfriends and wives and spouses that we idealize and we then devaluate. And it's like, it's okay to like, there are sometimes situations where we put our trust in people and then they like really let us down, and it's okay to be like, what the heck, like, of course I don't idealize you anymore. And those are good learning experiences, because it's like, those experiences, it's like you need to learn some discernment in terms of who you're going to open up towards. But other times it's like, if you're not really engaging too much, like you don't really know the person, it's just your own stuff, and it's good to be aware of like why you would pick someone to, we all pick a target for things sometimes. Why are you picking this person as a target for your stuff? because I'm also just a real person beyond these like energies that come through me. And I also had no choice in being born. I was born this way. I was born not crying, which is a sign in a lot of cultures of an advanced soul, or a soul that has a different kind of wisdom. No, I'm not saying I'm so great or anything, but I'm saying all my siblings are born. I have 3 siblings, same parents, same situation, and similar birth situations. And then they all cried their heads off, and I did not cry. I just like stared. So I've been freaking people out my whole life with stuff. I remember one time I was in high school and I came into the room and I asked, I think I mentioned this in one of my videos before, I asked my teacher how her family was, and she burst into tears and left the room, and later let us know that she just had learned that her sister was diagnosed with cancer, like terminal cancer. And I had no way of knowing that, but that's how my radar works. That if something's happened with your family, I may come up to you, take your hand, have no idea why, but I will say, hey, what's up with your family? It's called being a spiritual intuitive. I also have had experiences where I have heard stuff and not been able to turn it off until I tune out and accept that it's there, like heard energies. I won't go into what they are. I've seen entities also with other people who have second sight, so they can corroborate seeing it with me. And I've in general just had a lot of supernatural experiences in my life. And I think it's just the path of the psychic to be like sort of crucified at times, because it's like, how dare you like assert that like there's reality to our intuition, because people who are out of touch with their intuition, that's very scary for them. And those people often come from situations where people told them they were like crazy, like mentally ill, you know, and they bought it in the traditional sense and hated themselves. So when they see someone else actually trusting their intuition and being like, no, I'm not mentally ill, I'm perfectly sound, I'm just a medium, that can be scary, because a lot of times mental illness is a term that's like slammed on someone, when actually they may just be a sensitive or a highly sensitive person, or an intuitive, you know. In a lot of cultures, being like, oh, I'm like talking to dead relatives, or like I can see your guides, it's like, okay, time to go to the mental hospital. So you also may have been trained to like keep that to yourself if you're a psychic. Anyway, this is really just for like any psychic who feels like this happens to them, and it's sort of just par for the course. I think there was I posted some video the other day where I was showing my dark self, my dark side, which is the side that like, you know, thinks everything's unfair and people get unfair advantages. Because I wanted to show that I'm not perfect. Like I get into shitty moods sometimes. Of course, I don't want to project some perfect ideal version, smiley. That's not my brand. I don't think of things that way. And my brand is just healing. It's the brand. No money. No money so far. Actually no. I've done a lot of private readings, but those are mostly people I meet in person. But this is for healing. This is just for healing purposes, for public service. And for artistic expression. But like, it's sort of like Spider-Man, like with great power comes great responsibility. So like, if you have that gift where you can tune into people, and it becomes like it's you have to be really careful, because you can pick up on so much. I wake up every morning and pray to Mother Mary. I don't know if I said this so far, but I pray every morning because my rosary is right in front of me and then right next to my hand when I'm sleeping. And it's just natural instinct from childhood that calms me. And then I feel that I've sealed any energy that's coming through and I can handle it. So, and I try to transmute any negative energy also of like trolls or just people in the day with Mary's energy. You know, that may sometimes involve getting involved, like sticking up for myself, but usually it doesn't. Usually it's just like, I don't care. I'll let Mary do this for me. It's one of my favorite things. If you're having a tough day, is to say, I'm just going to let Spirit do this day for me. Or I'm going to let Jesus do this day for me. I'm going to let Mary do this day for me. Let them do it. Let them make the hard decisions. Let them call the shots. I'll just be in my backseat here, backseat driver. But so I'm doing this video just because like I want to say that to the people who, my 5 trolls who loved me and then turned on me. It's all just fodder and fun to me, and I think it's actually I love drama. I think it's very entertaining. But I also do want to say, like, you person, multiple people who have done this to me. The last one was, there was one recently, and there was one a month ago, and there was one earlier than that. You should realize that, like, there's other forums. Just because you see that psychics are easy to put your energy onto, because we're giving you energy, you see there's that connection there, right? So there's other places to put your negative energy that you can't get rid of. It's gotta come out, right? But there's like other ways: exercise, artwork, writing in a journal, seeing a therapist, seeing a psychiatrist, seeing a psychologist even, or an analyst, or just like a healer, a shaman. You know, I think I mentioned I went to a Reiki healer, growing in acupuncture, or just like doing like physical activity is my favorite thing to discharge negative energy. But like, if you're gonna come at me with some like crazy comments or whatever, 98% would not respond. But if I do, it's just to be like, dude, like, I love you. It's gonna be okay. Which also surprises people. Anyway, yeah, so this is sort of like a manifesto now of just like the modern psychic in our society and what it's like. And I know that I said with great power comes great responsibility. I feel like the responsibility is to just like, okay, yeah, I'm like reading people's thoughts at the grocery store. I'm like able to predict what will happen sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes if I'm really tuned in and I'm worried about something, I can read signs, or I can use my cards, and I can feel more confident that I know what will happen. And we all have that intuition, you know. It's okay to see also when you're a psychic, there's a variety of outcomes. So you may see a flash of something and then you realize that's just one possibility. That's one way of it going. You know, I was in a store. I'm not going to censor myself, sorry. This is sort of a long one, and I know that I don't get many views on the long ones, but that's not really why they're there. They're there for anyone who randomly is bored one day and wants to watch it. I was in a store the other day that was like a sort of a witchy store, but the energy had changed a lot since I'd been there, and I didn't buy anything even. I just didn't like anything they had. But like, there was this woman talking about her kids and how they had The Shine, which is from The Shining, if you've seen it. I love The Shining. It was weird because I had just watched the the 90s version of The Shining, which is like a different, it's like much more psychologically violent, I would say, and it's longer, and it's like a teleplay, and it's Stephen King wrote it. He wrote the script for it, so it's just like different than The Shining with Kubrick, which are both they're both brilliant, equally brilliant. But I had just watched it, so I thought it was funny that she was talking about it. But she was going on and on about how her kid had the shine, and he was so great, and I thought it must be really stifling to grow up with a mother like that, actually, because she was so loud and she took up so much energy in the whole place, and she wanted everyone to know that her kid had the shine. And it was like, it's like, that's why the shine was created for that kid. That kid created it because you're so overbearing. No, but I'm also saying that, like, I kind of hate how people co-opt things from pop culture and like just like decide that's what it is. Like, I mean, I guess it's kind of sweet. I love Stephen King, but I think that that's just a little bit of a simplification for a soul that is picking up on a lot of stuff. And I think that I would challenge the general population to, instead of like being fearful of these things and being ready to go on a witch hunt, in a sense, just to be open that maybe what you're seeing when you're watching a channel is not fully this person. You are seeing them, but you're seeing energy come through them. You're seeing souls, you're seeing guides, you're seeing spirit and energy come through, and that you're actually encountering a lot of personalities here, for one thing. So I don't know if that makes any sense to anyone, but hopefully it makes you feel better if you felt offended or scared by any of my readings in particular. But just know that they've all been sealed with love, and none of them are coming from a dark place. If it hits home really, really intensely and you're overwhelmed, or if it doesn't make sense for you at all, like, that's all okay too. And I'm sending you so much love. And if you are feeling witch hunted in your life, just know that there's a secret solace within, place of space of a space of peace within that no one can take from you. It's called the inner sanctuary. You can imagine it. You can put it yourself in like a garden or however you want. Maybe it's the ocean by the beach, but when you're feeling attacked by people for your gifts, you can go there and connect with your inner power, and you'll find that it will quickly come back to you, and you'll not give as much power to these negative people.